Stand by for reawaken.org radio. In 3, 2, 1. Cue the announcer.
You found reawaken.org radio, your one source for tech news and reviews. Now, almost live from sunny Florida, here's your host, Bawana McCall.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to episode 261 of Bawana.org radio. I don't thank everybody for coming by today. We got a great show lined up for you. It is July 25th, 2013, but most of our show is going to be dedicated to Google. Yeah, you probably guessed it. Google had a lot of stuff going on yesterday, mainly to do with their Android OS and their Chrome stuff and some new toys for us geeks to play with. So if you want to find out more about this wonderful event, I'm going to be covering some of the topics, my take on them, and you know the routine. That's how I talk about shows here, or I talk about stories here at Bawana.org radio. We do daily, almost daily news, like 2 days a week. We do Tuesday and Thursday, so we try to catch the weekend news on the Tuesday show, and a little bit of tidbits in between Tuesday and Thursday. We throw on the Thursday show, even those little bits that we missed for the Tuesday show. We got a great show lined up for you for episode 261. Stand by now, stand by, of Bawana.org radio.
It's time for Bawana.org radio's tech news for this week.
And for our first story, we're going to dive right into it and talk about this Google stuff. The article I'm going to be using as a guide for the Google unveilings is over at readwrite.com. And Google unveils new Chrome and Android devices is the title of the article. Now, it was kind of a, I don't know, I don't want to say lackluster, but there wasn't a whole lot of pow to this particular announcement. It seemed fairly light. I think the biggest thing that we're going to talk about is the new hardware announcement. Everything else was kind of okay, but we're gonna dwell on these things one at a time. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the new hardware. Is the next Nexus 7. This is going to be their new tablet. Now, Android has been arguably lacking in the tablet department. I mean, there's a couple of decent Android tablets out there, and everyone's looking to Google to make the Nexus the one to go to. Now, the previous Nexus 7 was pretty good. I got some decent reviews. People, generally liked it, but it wasn't quite iPad popularity yet. It still has a ways to go. I mean, the iPad Mini kind of was the competition for the Nexus 7. This is the 7-inch tablet. It's kind of that hybrid between phone and tablet. Some people call it a phablet. And I want to smack them in the face. But I don't, because I'll go to jail for that kind of stuff. The Nexus 7, this is a new one that they're coming out with. It supposedly has a better screen and a faster processor and optimized for watching clips. Now, I don't know. It's going to range from $229 to $349. And from what I gather, the screen has been improved and the hardware has been improved, but that's about it. And I'm not surprised by this particular, bump in, I guess you could say that the feature bump or the increase in specs. But I can't help but notice, being a frequenter of Google Plus, I get a lot of Android enthusiasts that exhibit a lot of the negative attributes of fanboys. A lot of people are calling this the best thing ever. And, I know what it is. It is basically an incremental update. It's not that big of a huge update. It's a necessary update, and when Apple does the same thing, I call them out on it as well. It's basically increasing the specs or maybe making the screen better, but not really a huge jump in. We're not going from war to utopia here. Let's just call it what it is. It's a feature bump. It's just a little bit of a processor bump and a screen bump. Now that may be enough to push it over the edge. It's going to be an attractive buy to people, and it's probably going to serve as a great device. I'm not going to knock the device at all, but I do think it is a good tablet. It looks like a great tablet. I've seen Nexus 7s on display, and I haven't used one myself, but they look like a great tablet. But that's what it is. It's a tablet. So I was a little confused by this whole event, because to me this was the highlight of the event. That was like the best thing I saw in terms of oomph value. Now Android 4.3 was released, and this is kind of ironic, or it's not really ironic, it's strange, because 4.2 just came out, if I'm not mistaken, just a few weeks ago. So I was like, 4.3 already? Not really 4.2 a couple weeks ago. Well, I'm following these things from the perspective of the carriers, like from Verizon, from AT&T, from the people who have to push out their updates. We're still working on getting 4.2 on our devices, and these Nexus devices are going to be bundled with 4.3. And I'm like, oh, but then I read about what was in 4.3, and I'm like, wait, well, that's not really a big deal. It's kind of a small bump in features. Again, it's like, okay, restricted profiles, and it's going to have some OpenGL features, and it's a minor update. I'm not saying it's an unnecessary update. I'm trying to be careful how I choose my words, so people get adamant about Android for some reason. I don't know why. But it's not that big of a feature jump. And they're calling it's still called Jelly Bean. They're calling it a sweeter Jelly Bean. So apparently it tastes sweeter, which is not a bad thing. But I gotta wonder, man. I'm like, 4.2 is barely out in the field. And, Google gets scrutinized, and Android, the platform, gets scrutinized for fragmentation, which has been improving over the years. And I would hate for it to take a step backwards because of these updates. Between 4.2 and 4. Actually, between 4.1 and 4.3 hasn't been that long of a time. Now, those of you who have Apple devices know that when an update comes out on Apple, it's pretty much across the board. You don't have to worry about carriers and all that stuff. You just download it, you're done. But with Android, you're dependent on the carrier much more so than you are with Apple devices. You are dependent on whether AT&T pushes out that update. You're dependent on whether Verizon pushes out that update. Now, there are ways around that, just like with the iPhone. You can root the device, you can jailbreak the device, and just break the phone yourself. I say break because that's what I mean by hack. You can just hack the phone yourself and basically get the updates ahead of time. You can put, like, for example, I have the HTC One. I could today get the Google edition of Android for the HTC One right now if I wanted to, even though it's not out for my phone specifically. I can just root the phone and flash the ROM, but I don't, because I ain't had time for all that. No, seriously, I really don't see a need to do that right now. But in terms of fragmentation, Google's got to be careful here. This is not like oh no, Google's going to be seriously fragmented because of this, but they got to be careful not to push out updates too fast, because the carriers generally lag tremendously when it comes to pushing out later versions of Android. We all know how that can get fragmented because it was a big problem in the past, and it's getting better. Now, this was like the second best update here that was announced at this Google event. It was called Chromecast, and it's basically an HDMI dongle, which is not new. HDMI dongles have been around for a while. There's some DNLP ones. There's some other ones that basically you can plug into your HDMI port and stream whatever. These are popular nowadays. These are things that can convert your TV into a smart TV. We use devices like the Roku. We use the Apple TV. We use Boxy Box and Google TV even. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Google TV. And this one didn't puzzle me, but I was happy. I was pleasantly surprised, mainly because of the price point. Google is pricing this thing at $35, which is very, very affordable. If you got an HDMI port on your television and you want to watch Netflix, that's all you want to do, this is probably the cheapest solution. Or if you want to watch YouTube on your TV, probably the cheapest solution you'll find. Now you can, of course, hook up your laptop to a TV through the VGA port or a machine, or use some of Apple's features through the Apple TV, but that's another investment. You can share your screen, you can do AirPlay, but this is like a dongle. This is something you can just buy. If you got a TV with nothing, you plug this dongle in, bam, you got YouTube and Netflix right out of the box. And you got some other features, such as streaming your browser. Google introduced a new SDK for Google Chrome so that you can stream applications from a machine with a browser to your television or to this dongle. Now, personally, I pre-ordered this thing. It hasn't arrived yet. I pre-ordered this thing with the hopes that someone would figure out a way to hack it or root it or whatever, so that I could do screen mirroring. I have a big suspicion that screen mirroring won't be enabled by default. What I mean by screen mirroring is that I can essentially plug this into my my capture card on my PC and plug in or basically stream my handheld device and be able to capture the video on my computer, which is a very cool thing if you review apps. It's something I've gotten around with HDMI adapters and all kinds of cool stuff. But this is kind of powerful because I can use my browser, I can use my phone. It works on iOS and Android, so that was kind of the selling factor for me. Now, in the meantime, I could use this thing to watch Android, to watch Netflix on my TV, and or I can watch on YouTube, or I can play with some of the features, maybe even play with the SDK. So it has some things that are really, really nice. So these were the main three things that came out of the event. Google really is getting aggressive with the television and with their Android devices, and basically this is kind of a testament of the merger between Chrome and Android. With Chrome and Android being under one umbrella, you're starting to see some of the integration points come into play. So check this story out, guys. Over on rewrite.com, they got the details about Google's event announcing some Chrome and Android goodies for us to play with as geeks. And for our next story, we're going to talk about Google again. But again, I want to bring up this Chromecast device, which was the HDMI dongle I talked about in the previous story. Now, the first thing that popped in my mind when I saw this device was, wow, it's cool and it's cheap. But then I got to thinking that Google already has something for this. It's called Google TV. And Google TV came out a few years ago and has been met with a lot of criticism lately because of its lacking of content and partners. I know some proponents of Google TV have kind of backed off a little bit and said, well, the platform's not as good as I thought it would be. There are some things that are still missing. So when I saw the announcement for Chromecast, I was like, is this the first step to the death of Google TV? And I know other people felt this way because according to Engadget.com, they've got a story dedicated to it. It's called Google TV Getting Chromecast Support in a Future Update. And essentially what Google is saying is that Google TV is not going anywhere anytime soon. And they're going to work out ways to intertwine and integrate both of them. Okay, that's all well and good. They basically say they're going to work with getting more partners in the future. In the future, you can think of my air quotes, the future. And also new innovative ways to integrate them both. Now, if this were Google 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said much. But Google has been very, 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 very quick to axe services when there's overlap, especially when Google Plus comes into play. And there's not much Google Plus overlap right now with Chromecast and Google TV. But I don't know, man. It just I look at Google TV, I look at Chromecast, and I go, if I had a choice of getting one of these or getting both, what would I do? Would I get just the Chromecast? Would I get just the Google TV? Or would I just buy both? That's like three choices. Should I get one or the other, or should I get both? And I'm leaning towards getting one or the other. There is some feature overlap here. you're essentially creating a mechanism to push internet content to your living room, to your television set. Google TV can do it, and so can Chromecast. And I'm hesitant to say Chromecast may be a better solution overall. Even though it's young and it doesn't have a whole lot of service support, Chromecast and its small form factor and price really gives Apple TV stiff competition. Whereas I don't think Google TV did. I don't think Google TV gave Apple TV a lot of competition. I think when people were faced with the decision to go with Google TV versus Apple TV, that they chose Apple TV a majority of the time. But now if you look at Chromecast, you're looking at a $35 dongle that will get you very basic things like YouTube, Pandora, and Netflix, which is what some people use Apple TV for. Apple TV does have some features on top of that. It's not just those things. It does warrant its price point. I really think Apple TV is a brilliant piece of device. I mean, I bought two of them. I don't have the latest one, but I have bought two Apple TVs, and they've served me well. But this Chromecast is going to probably be an attractive, especially if you think about the holiday season. This is a great stocking stuffer. $35 dongle you can plug into your TV and watch Netflix. And I really I don't think Google TV has that kind of appeal, if you know what I mean. Google TV is a much bulkier solution with missing components. So to say that the two can coexist, it's hard for me to take that with confidence, especially with Google's ability to act services. I really think the lifetime of Google TV is limited, severely limited. And I think Chromecast is the first indicator that Google TV may be on the chopping block. We will see with time, but I gotta say, man, doesn't look good for Google TV. I see no incentive to go with Google TV over Chromecast, because again, the price point, the appeal, the simplicity, portability, and the like. Just think about if you go on a trip, a business trip. Would you rather take, if you want to watch Netflix in your hotel, if it doesn't have it already, because you can't get the HDMI ports in your hotel. If you want to watch Netflix in your hotel, you're going to drag along a Google TV or you're going to drag along a Chromecast. If you're going to go to your family's house for a holiday or for Thanksgiving or some sort of holiday, whatever, and you want to have Netflix available on the TV that you're watching, and they may not have all that stuff set up, but you're going to take Chromecast or you're going to take Google TV. As people writing these stories have rightfully pointed out, Chromecast simplifies bringing internet content to the television. And I think I saw a stat that said that only 15% of households are able to do that, and they are able to bring internet content to their television. Now, one thing that people are doing is they're buying these smart TVs, and smart TVs are kind of expensive. So what if I told you that you can buy a regular TV, convert it to a smart TV simply by buying this $35 dongle? You see what I'm getting at? The messaging is quite clear. I think Google TV is limited. I think they're on a chopping block. But we'll see. Google says nay. I say, we'll see about that. Check it out, guys. Over on Engadget, they got the details about this story. Google TV getting Chromecast support in a future update. But is it still going to be around after that? We'll see.
You're listening to Bawana.org Radio, a potpourri of tech news and reviews.
And for our next story, we're going to talk about other phones that are out there, other Android phones. And we're going to start with the phone that I own because I know about it. We're going to talk about the HTC One. We're going to talk about this Android 4.3 update that was announced yesterday and how it may affect these devices. Now, like I said previously, these devices are they're just starting to get 4.2. They're just starting to roll that out. And, right after that, 4.3 was announced. So some companies are keeping quiet. Like HTC is really not coming out and saying anything. As the article I have in the show notes is talking about, that HTC has been rumored to be producing a 4.3 update, which is coming out in the near future. They've been very, very quiet and very, they've just been careful because they've been bitten in the past by promising dates and not making them. Now, Sony basically came out and says they're going to push out an update. I don't think they gave an exact date, but they have an official statement saying that they're going to push out updates for their Android phones. Samsung is kind of in the same boat as HTC. They're kind of going, we really don't have any official information, but it's more like, yeah, we'll get to that. That's the best way I can describe it. We'll get to that. Look, let's take care of this 4.2 thing first. We're kind of still wrapping that up, and then we'll see about this brand new spanking new 4.3. So, as an HTC One owner, or if you're in the Sony boat or in the Samsung boat, that's non-Nexus. See all this fragmentation, man. It get messy. You're talking to the layman. They'd be like, I just want my phone so I can send my mom a text message when I have the measles. That's all I want. I just want the phone. I don't care about jelly beans and 4.2.3.6. I don't care about, they can really drive people batty. And they usually don't update because they don't care about that stuff. And that's part of the problem. But if, being an HTC One user, I really don't want it. I don't want 4.3. I look at the features that it has and I'm just like, it's like a customized version for the Nexus, I don't really think we're going to benefit that much from it. But Android, for some reason, Android users clamor for the latest and greatest. They got to have it. People flash their ROMs, man. They root their devices, and I gotta have the. They gotta have the get down. They gotta have the latest. Oh boy. So I'm not really sad about this. Even though it's rumored, I'm not really sad that we don't have it yet. Because I looked at my phone today and I'm just on 4.1. I haven't even got 4.2 yet. And I'm happy with it. It works. There's no bugs. I don't need anything fixed. If I had a glaring issue, I'd probably be looking for an update, but I don't have any bugs. So, we'll see. When 4.3 comes out, I'll get it or either I don't. Probably by that time, I really think by the time I really believe by the time HTC gets 4.3 out, there's going to be a new version out. Watch. Oh, man. But it's just the way it is. Check it out, guys. It's over on GottaBeMobile.com. They got details about it. HTC One 4.3 update coming in the near future. Now let's talk about something even awesomer than that. If you thought that was awesome, I don't know what's wrong with you. If you are a student in colleges and stuff, higher level learning, higher than high school, where you have to purchase books. That's where I'm getting at. You don't have to buy books generally in high school, but above that, you have to buy books. Not only do you have to pay your tuition, eat, you have to buy books. And as a former college student, I can remember looking at a book going, do I really need this book to pass? They want to charge me $265 for an 88-page book. Do I really need this to pass? I mean, can I just go to class, take notes, do a specific homework assignment? I could just bum off somebody who was dumb enough to pay that much for that book. Can I just do that? I never did it though. And here's the part that got me. At the end of the semester, you're all hungry because you've stretched out your budget and you've been eating ramen noodles for 6 months. And you're like, finally, I get some money back from this. I'm gonna go sell my book. You go to your local bookstore. There's usually one near campus. And you say, I want to sell this $260 book that's 88 pages long. Please tell me I can at least get enough for a Big Mac. And they go, let me scan it. Boop. $15. And there's something that rises up in you to lay your hands on that person's face with great ferocity. You want to smack them. Not their fault, but you want to smack them. because you paid $260 for that book, and they're gonna buy it back for $15. Now, it wouldn't be a bad thing if they didn't turn around and sell that same book for $260 again after buying it back. Oh, the memories. So I actually did well telling that story. Usually I get like emotional and start crying and stuff. But I was so happy to see this. For you future collegiate people who go to college, Google has said, we've been there, y'all. Google has introduced a new subsegment of their Play Store called textbooks that you can purchase and rent. Yes. This section will offer titles from the top 5 publishers, and students will have the choice of renting books for 6 months, in addition to buying them outright. It should be available this August, and they'll sync across Android, iOS, and the web. And they put on this slide that you'll have up to an 80% discount. So, while I don't want businesses to close nationwide, there's a huge chunk of me that says, you know, if every bookstore in the country were to close down as a result of this, I wouldn't lose a whole lot of sleep over it. Does that make me a bad person? Absolutely. And that's something I got to deal with. Check it out, guys. Over on Engadget.com, they got the details. Google Intros Play textbooks for purchase and rent for up to 80% discount. That is crazy. Now, we've been talking about Google. Let's go on to the next story. We've been talking about Google pretty much the entire show. Let's shift gears and talk about Apple. Apple has released their quarterly earnings for Q3. They made a revenue of $35.3 billion and a net profit of $6.9 billion. Yeah, so the highlight of this earnings announcement was that iPhone sales were up 20% from last year, which is what companies want. They want good year-over-year stats. But I think that's where the good news kind of ended overall. iPad sales and Mac sales were down year over year. Now, before we say, Apple, you suck, you didn't take a burger. Apple met their number. Basically, they hit their EPS of... Does this have their earnings per share in this document? They hit their earnings per share, and they even exceeded it by, I believe, like about 13 cents per share, which is really good. And their stock rose 5% after reporting these earnings. Wall Street generally doesn't care if you do worse than you did a year ago. They want to know is, were your projections in line with what you did? If you tell them I'm going to make 15 cents EPS, and you do 13, they'd be like, you lied to me, and they're going to sell, and your stock's going to drop 20%. But if you hit your numbers, you say what you basically do what you said you were going to do, you get more faith from the stockholders because they can project their investments appropriately because you are predictable. Stocks and markets are really, really driven by predictability. You really want to know what these stocks are going to do. So Apple and all their, the gloom at a lot of Android fanboys. It's time for the Nexus to take over. Here they go. Apple, dance with Apple, the dance with Apple, the dance with Apple. And Apple's got like $700 trillion in the bank or something. I don't know what they got. They're doing very well. And the fact that they were able to project this really doesn't make it that big of a deal. I think I'm more impressed that the iPhone sales were up because I expected them to be flat, if not down. A lot of rumor sites even predicted that the sales will be down because people are going to be waiting for the next iPhone. Q3 is generally looked at as a time before the next iPhone. And people expect lesser sales, but they Basically did better than last year, which is pretty good. Now, Apple is doing something a little bit different than they did in the past. When I say past, I mean like Steve Jobs era, during the early days. You know, they used to keep to just sticking with high-end phones. But if you look at what's going on now, Apple has a pretty good variety of options available. Now, if you don't mind not having the latest and greatest, you know, you can get an iPhone for $99. There was a time you couldn't do that. It was like impossible, unless you went to eBay, unless you went to Craigslist. You know, and these are new; they're not refurbished, brand new. So if you don't care about latest and greatest, you can get a low end iPhone. You know, the price range goes from $99 all the way up to the top end, whatever, $599. So I think that's what's helping them. I think Apple's decision to open options for the low end market, for people who don't really care about the latest and greatest, all they want to do is text message their mom when they have the measles, and you know, play some Candy Crush Saga when they're supposed to be studying. Tisk. Check it out, guys, over on slashgear.com. They got the details. iPhone sales are up 20% from last year, but iPad and Mac sales are down.
You found Bawana.org Radio. Tech news and tech gadgets for the hardcore geek in all of us.
All right, now let's talk about Twitter. Twitter. I gotta say, Twitter is probably my most used social network out of all of them. I shy away tremendously from Facebook. I barely use that site. Google Plus comes in second, but Twitter is definitely my most number one in this. Bestesses. I'm just making up words all show. Social network. Twitter is in the news right now at gigaohm.com. And it ain't good. It's not good news. Twitter has posted some fake advertisements. All right. And they're basically using this to promote their new analytics. And what they're doing is they're posting these fake advertisements of testimonials from users. And this is where it gets ugly. They're actually real users, but they made up the testimonials. Ouch. Twitter used real users' portraits in these articles, in these screenshots, these mock-ups, but they put fake text in there. Now, you can imagine just being a normal Joe Schmo, sign up for Twitter, post 2 tweets and never use it again. Then all of a sudden your face is on some Twitter ad talking about how something is great. And they didn't contact you. They didn't let you know. You probably got some choice words about that. You're like, well, maybe, perhaps, just maybe, you should have at least ask for my permission, or at the very, very least, notify me that you were going to use me and then say things I didn't say. At the very, very least. Oh, it's not a good thing, guys, but it just goes to show, and you're not going to like me for saying this, it just goes to show that we don't own our data on the internet. If you post anything to any social network that has any kind of terms of service, you don't own the data. Basically, they own the data. And Facebook made this apparent. Facebook kind of earns my respect in this regard because they were bold. They were just like, you post to Facebook, we're going to sell it. Yeah. And we're going to use it for ads. What are you going to do about it? It's our data. See, it says right here in our terms, right there, in our EULA. And you agree to use the service. Everything you post here is ours. Problem? That's how Facebook was. People were like, oh my goodness, Facebook private, I risk you with your sue. And nothing changed. Facebook was like, we're sorry, but yeah, the data's still ours. But Twitter kind of has a similar thing. It's they own the data. You really can't do anything about this. It's a breach of quote unquote privacy, but it's perfectly legal. So while we say shame on you, Twitter, at the same time, we got to say, well, we got to be educated how we post on the internet, what accounts we sign up for. We got to be aware of how they can use our data. I mean, that was a big reason why I don't use Facebook, because they're basically data pimps. Yeah. Think about it. They're data pimps. It's pretty sad, right? Now, this is not going to change the way I use Twitter, though, because the way I see it, Twitter is kind of a trade-off. Here is a tool for me to market my brand, Buana. I am a brand. I am a brand of cereal. I can market my brand of cereal on Twitter for free. Quote unquote free. But as a kind of a return to use their service, Twitter owns the data that I put up there. Now they say, well, you can use our platform absolutely free to promote your brand, make money, do whatever you want, have people follow you, retweet, tweet to your heart's content, boy. Yes, tweet. But the data's ours, so if we decide to sell it or to manipulate it, you really can't say anything about that. You can't say anything. Agreed? Agreed. Okay. Welcome to Twitter. That's the way I kind of look at it. So that's why I really don't post a whole lot of juicy stuff on Twitter. Even though it's one of my most used networks, I don't post a lot of juicy stuff. Now, I used to post a lot of juicy stuff on Friend Feed back in the day, and I saw what happened with that. The service kind of got bought by Facebook and then fell under that umbrella, and I was just like, well, thanks for the betrayal, because their terms basically didn't say what everybody else's did until they went to Facebook. When they went to Facebook, everything changed. So the data was no longer mine, it was theirs. So I was like, well, thank you. Which kind of, really sparked me just shying away from social networks altogether. I'm just like, whatever, guys. I'll do video. Yeah. There's a site called YouTube. They own my data too. I'm just joking. At least YouTube gives you the option of doing Creative Commons. That's why I like YouTube. Creative Commons, my stuff's licensed under that, which basically says that I own this. I do like that. I don't think your tweets can be protected under Creative Commons. It's in conflict with their EULA. So check it out, guys. Over on gigaohm.com, Twitter's fake ads reawaken the existential, how do you pronounce that word? Angst we feel about using cloud services. That's the title of the article. It just basically is a paraphrase of what I just said for the past 10 minutes. Check it out, guys. GigaOhm has a story. And for our final story, we're going to talk about the NSA. I know, I tried to avoid it, but it's not about Prism, though. Not about Prism. We're going to talk about the NSA and their latest statement. In a response to a public records request, the National Security Agency said that it doesn't have the technology. I am not making this up. The NSA says we don't have the technology to give you our records. So, the NSA basically say they have a supercomputing powerhouse with their machines so powerful their speed is measured in the thousands of trillions of operations per second. But This is a quote. There's no central method, and this is worded very well, by the way. There's no central method to search an email at this time, with the way our records are set up, unfortunately. Unfortunately. The system is a little antiquated and archaic. Big words. And I say shenanigans. That is a great answer for a secret agency. If you wanna have secrets and you want to do things underground, you don't want nobody to know how you do it. You want to keep your methods in the dark because you're fighting this dark war in the shadows. You're gonna say that. You're like, well, we can't give you what you asked for because we can't do it. Bye. So, while I think it's shenanigans what they're saying, because I know they can do it if they wanted to. They don't want to, so they're not going to do it. It's as simple as that. And people are going to be outraged, of course. I'm not surprised. I'm not saying it's okay for them to do this, but I'm not surprised. And if you're the NSA, check this out now. If you were the NSA and you were tasked with protecting information because of the way you obtained it and what it obtains and the just the absolute complete social fallout that would happen if all these secrets were out, would you say, oh, here's our emails? Would you do that? I don't even want to be put in that situation. I'm thankful that I'm doing Buona.org radio and I work for Hewlett Packard telling people about stuff. I don't have to make those kind of decisions. I'm a happy man as a result. But if you were put in that situation, man, ooh, let me tell you what the boy howdy to what's happening, boy. It ain't easy, so I'm not surprised. But it's shenanigans. They can do it. Check it out, guys. Over on ProPublica.org, this article talks about how the NSA says they can't search their own email because the system's too complicated. And that concludes our stories for episode 261 of Buona.org Radio. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please follow the channel at youtube.com/iobuffa or at radio.buona.org, or you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/buona or at twitter.com/buonalive if you wish to catch my live stream, which we're doing right now. We're actually recording the behind the scenes of Buona.org Radio. I got a little layout going with my camera, chat, and my editing software so that people can see the behind the scenes of what's going on. We do the show every Tuesday and Thursday, and we're back on track. I got back on track last show, so I'm happy to be back. And I almost didn't do the show tonight because I'm exhausted. Oh, man. Woo! I hope you couldn't tell from the show, but I am kapooped. I was able to do it anyway. And we're going to try to push through and keep these shows coming no matter what. So check it out, guys. More shows, radio.buona.org. That's where I'm at. That concludes episode 261 of Buona.org Radio. And I will see you all next time.